so much for the invitation. My name is Julie Meyer. I do a lot of different things. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also a lecturer here in the Entrepreneurship and Innovation group, and I love to tell good stories. I am a communicator in my background. I've started a variety of companies, and I am here today with AugMentors to help you all really make an impact by being able to effectively tell your story. You have all been in this situation where you meet somebody and you say, "Oh, what do you do?" And they're talking and you're like, "I don't even understand what you're saying." And when that happens, you're not able to help them in any way, shape, or form. So our goal for today is to really give you all a great, time-tested, effective framework for being able to tell your story, and a framework for thinking about who you're telling your story to and how they can help you. So the goal is to help you be able to tell a really concise story, and then to help you know, if you know who you're talking to, what to say to get them to the next step of the process. Before we get started, Katie, do you want to say anything about the event in the fall or anything? I know we were going to do a little bit of a setup. Is there anything that you wanted to add before I jump in?
Sure. I'll share a little bit just about kind of the purpose that Julie just mentioned, is that we want to be sure that you're able to effectively share your impact and your value. And, sometimes it's difficult. You can talk a lot about the science and the technology behind what it is you're up to, but you can't necessarily get folks as excited as you are about its potential impact, right? Because some of your technology readiness levels are lower as opposed to higher. You know that there's a lot of potential impact, but what it is you're able to demonstrate maybe isn't there yet. So how do you help get folks excited? That's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on you doing it in a succinct period of time, which I know is another challenge, right? So Julie's going to kind of explain what the format's going to look like, but essentially what we're trying to set you up for is, come this fall, we're planning on hosting a storytelling showcase where we bring external ecosystem members in to judge who's able to demonstrate their impact and their value most effectively. And there will be cash prizes affiliated with that. They are very minuscule, so let's not get too excited, but a little bit of excitement is appropriate. And I would say that, there are going to be restrictions around it. So it will require that you are a CRI spinout. You are actively commercializing Northeastern University. I know many of you are doing that already, if not on your way, to attempt to do that. And really, that's the only requirement around that. The requirement for preparation beyond today's workshop, which is mandatory in order to participate in that storytelling showcase, includes that you do have at least 2 coaching sessions over the summer, one with me and one as a follow-up with Julie. So what it is you start today, we're going to iterate on prior to the fall. Okay? We can talk a little bit more about that at the end of this in case there are questions. But other than that, I think we're good to go. And Julie, the only other thing I'll say is I know that we have some worksheets. I will share those virtually with those folks that are joining us when we kind of break out into that part of today's session.
Perfect.
All right, please engage in today's session. Please ask questions if needed.
You will be engaged.
Yeah, this is
if you want to or not. So that's what it's coffee and sugar. So.
Yeah, it's meant to be fun. So there's coffee and sugar has some.
Yeah. All right, cool. So here's just a general top line. We're going to do a quick intros, and I want you to think of a quick story about something that happened to you this morning on your way here. Something that's going to make it memorable, to be like, "Oh, I remember that guy. He's the guy who has a really busy day," or what have you. Like a way to just help you remember the person. So, and then I would love to hear your name, your business, and then a little quick story, quick. We're going to talk just briefly about the science of storytelling, and we're going to spend a lot of time on our innovation narrative structure. This is what I was mentioning. That is a tested, approved way to be able to tell a story about your innovation that draws people in, gets them excited to be involved in your process. Who cares? When you are talking to different people, they're going to care in different ways. Your friends and family are going to care because they kind of want to just be able to tell somebody else what you do. Your non-dilutive funders want to figure out what kind of an impact you're making. Your customers want to understand, are you actually going to solve their problems? So we'll talk a little bit about different audiences and what they're looking for. We're talking about the magical 2 slides. This is really hard. And how do you tell your story in 1 or 2 slides? Which I did not do an effective job of in this presentation, but we're going to give some examples. We'll do quick questions, and then I'll have some homework for you that we'll go back to some of the coaching that Katie and I will do with you after this. So, and definitely jump in with questions. This will be interactive. We will break after the innovation narrative structure for you all to work on that, come back and do a share out, and we'll do the same after Who Cares, and hopefully end before 11:30, and hopefully a little early if you need to. Okay, great. So name, company, what happened to you this morning?
Well, a lot. So we are hosting two nephews, and so I had to drop off my two kids, different schools, pouring rain, taking care of nephews, leaving the house, getting to the train station 30 seconds before my train, and getting here on time.
So you are having a moment of calm as you're sitting.
Yes. When I
Like,
got on my train, my watch told me that my heart rate was. And
tell
I'm
me,
chilling.
that's fabulous. You're fabulous. And what's your business? What's your?
So we are starting a chromatography company, a chromatography startup, spin out of my lab, and together with Michal, we are moving it forward.
Okay, great. Welcome. Great.
My name is Ufuk. Yeah, this morning is going to look like another very routine, the morning for me, the drop to my daughter to schools. Come here, spend, the almost 2 hours, in traffic to come here, from Worcester to here, and try to find, parking. 30 minutes, I spent looking for that. Yeah, just that, like this. And my business is, our company is Deep Charge. Yeah, we try to produce, the next generation wireless charging solution for industrial application.
Great.
Yeah, I'm CTO over
I look forward to hearing more. Okay, cool. So it's great because we now know you've got nephews, you've got kids back and forth, you live far away. So like these little bits of information, remember, oh yeah, that guy was from Worcester. I remember. Yeah. So go ahead.
My name is Michal. Here with Alexander, we have a chromatograph startup called Facilitator. And this morning I was running late. I was rushing and I saw some person who I didn't recognize immediately. And I recognized that it was Katie, and 2 seconds after class, and so I'm like, I don't even say hi. So
Hi. So we know you're a little rude. No, I'm just kidding. But you're in your head. You're in your head. You're focused on your day. You're not, thinking around other things. That's great. Great. Welcome.
Yeah, so I'm Jason. My company is Fourier LLC, spin out from Northeastern here. And the story from this morning is when I arrived, it's a little wet, a little late, and then I saw the wonderful coffee, and now I'm very happy, warm, and gratified.
You thought your day was going to be, it's just off to a
It's
great
going to
start.
be wet and gross and sad, and now it's
And your business.
again,
Your business.
Fourier
Oh,
LLC.
for it. That's right. Already said that. Okay, great. Welcome. Welcome.
My name's Justin. I'm a PhD student here. I'm working on a startup called Organ Therapeutics, and we are trying to solve the probiotic trust problem. Right, you go on Amazon and you search for probiotics, and it's a mess. Right, you don't know what to take, who should take it, what it's going to solve. So we're trying to solve that problem. This morning, got here, didn't get wet, which is great. But I was using a $1 million piece of equipment to study poop. So that was. So hopefully
That's very memorable. Yes, that is very memorable. I can only imagine what a $1 million piece of equipment looks
Yeah.
like, let alone. Okay, very memorable. Go ahead.
I'm Ivy. I co-op students in these teams. And like for my morning is always about my dog because I need to feed my dog and clean for him. And I also clean up like the food from my dog because my dog loves to like hit around my bed. So I have to do all the work for him. And after that, I feel I'm a little bit late for my work. So I'm gonna like grab everything and rush to him. And I get here.
Okay. So food already is a threat. All right, great. Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lily. I'm the entrepreneurship librarian here at Northeastern, work with Kyle and Ivy. My morning also centered around my pet, who normally wakes me up at 5:30 to eat, but she's a cat. She was very good this morning, actually. But I was running late. But then I had a wonderful breakfast with my colleagues. So
Nice.
I'm also calming down from the rush of the morning.
Yes.
Yes.
You got a chance to connect.
Yes.
A chance to chat with your colleagues. Great. Awesome. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Kyle Hannon. I'm the Entrepreneurship Program Manager here at the library. Work with Lily and Ivy and continuing the theme, not the poop one, but the pet one. I was walking my dog this morning like I usually do, but I was like, okay, gotta catch this bus because gotta make it here for coffee. And she was just chomping grass like she does, like a little cow. And I was like, dragging her, trying to get her to stop. And nope, she just wanted to graze and through the grass. And I was like, no, we don't have time for this. Go.
They don't understand that. They do not understand that. They don't
That was
understand
just
their
like
time.
all four paws, like break.
Oh.
I'm not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Katie, do you want to do a quick intro and then maybe we grab the people online?
So I'm Katie. I think I know most of you, and I just met you, obviously, great to meet you. I work at the Center for Research Innovation. I'm director of I'm not director of tech transfer, I do this every time. I'm director of tech ventures and talent network. And what happened this morning? Well, this morning I'm in person, so it's always a little chaotic. I do work fully remotely. And so when I do come in person, it's back-to-back meetings, which is exciting. But my first meeting was with you two for breakfast, which was great. And I think the only other thing that goes on every time I'm in person is that nothing goes as planned, right? So like trying to get in and get all of the media to work and all of the rest is always a chaotic time. And I would like to say that I am very organized in my disorganization. So I'm glad everything worked out this morning and you're all here and I'm here with you. I got here last night at 9:45 p.m. and I'm very happy to see you all this AM. So thanks for being here.
Awesome. Okay, so we know traveling far away. We know these guys like to hang out together and have their breakfast. We know a lot about pets. Lily and Michelle, I think, Lily, do you want to go first? Just your name, the name of your business.
Oh,
and-
no, that's just me.
Oh, that's you. I'm sorry. Who else is on the,
Michelle and possibly.
Yes.
I think
go
just,
ahead.
yeah, Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone. So sorry I couldn't be there in person. I don't have a commute to work story for the morning, but I woke up with the sound of rain, which is always nice. I work at Northeastern at Z-Touch Networks, which is a startup working in the cellular networks business. Nice to meet everyone.
Great. And we have one more colleague who just showed up. What's your name?
My name is Sundar.
What happened this morning?
Okay.
So you were
I got
late.
home late, pretty much like Katie. I was in another event. There's like two conferences that I'm attending in Boston. So I got back home late and I think I woke up just to the reminder of this workshop, but like around 8:30 and I just rushed here.
Cool. Great. Well, welcome. I'm Julie. I'm Julie Meyer. My company is AugMentors, although I am a dietitian. I have a background working in food. So if you want to geek out about poop, I'm definitely here for that. And I don't drive. I don't drive very well. I'm actually a new driver. I just learned how to drive about 2 years ago. And I was talking to a friend on the phone and I was like, monster a drive and it's raining. And she's like, oh, are you driving and talking to me? And I was like, no, I'm in an Uber. She's like, okay. Because I am a terrible driver, let alone thought of me driving on Stir Drive in rain. Terrible idea. So, but I am grateful to be here. I do live in New York most of the time. I'm here part of the time as well. So let's jump into any questions. Any questions about the setup before we get going? You're like, we haven't done anything yet. Okay.
What's
So-
that abbreviation, TIR5?
Is that the jury? Isn't jury?
CRI is our
CRI.
abbreviation.
Is
You know, it's so funny that you asked that, Alexander, because I almost asked it when we did our preview, but then I said, oh, it must have something to do with AugMentors.
Oh, okay. It doesn't have anything to do with AugMentors. CRI. That's why we're here. So, so why stories matter? So who has been in the situation where somebody is trying to explain something to you and you don't understand? And you keep asking and they keep repeating it and it's not clear what it is. So we know that stories matter because when you hear a story, when you watch a show, when somebody shares their experience, you feel something for them. You feel invested. I felt invested in your story this morning with the kids going to one place and another place, the traffic for 2 hours, like you're invested in the story. Feel like you want to help that person. So that is kind of our neurological impact, but then there is also a financial aspect to it. You know, just some stats about valuation, that origin stories secure funding at 35% higher valuation because investors want to know that they're not only investing in your business, they're investing in you as a human. And we'll talk a little bit more about audiences. We'll talk a little bit more about what are they looking for in those humans? What do they care about? So we want to make sure we have a really strong narrative. Same with investor psychology. The quality of a story is really, really important to investors. But we also know we remember things. That's why I wanted all of us to share at least a fact about something about ourselves. So you might remember Lily has a cat, but you might remember that you maybe forget to look at your calendar first thing in the morning. So if you have a meeting with you, we organized about it, but we'll remember stories about people way more than we're going to remember facts about people. And we have a response. We have a biochemical response to people that, of when they're telling us their stories and what they remember. So don't make this woman yawn when you're telling her your story. So can someone understand your core idea in 9 seconds? That's the amount of time it takes somebody to get their head around what are you actually talking about. The probiotic and the poops, because I know a lot about probiotic, right? That's in 9 seconds, it's okay, I get exactly what you're working on. And what we're going to work on today, the most important thing is, can you get to the next meeting? Especially when we're talking about different audiences. The most important thing is that you've sold them enough that they want to hear more. You are not in 9 seconds probably going to find somebody who says, oh my God, that is it. I've been waiting to invest in your company. I've been waiting to buy your product. Oh my God, here's a check, right? But you want to be able to have them interested enough and to have good understanding of what you are talking about so that you can get to the next meeting. Is your story clear enough for anyone to understand? So I did research on all your companies. I don't really understand what most of you do, to be perfectly honest. So I'm looking forward to at the end of our time together, so I will better understand. But is it clear enough for anyone to understand? And I know the event in the fall, we don't really know exactly what we want from the people who are going to be there, but we want to make it clear enough for our moms to understand, for our grandmas to understand, for an investor to understand, for somebody that you meet on the train, if you're having a conversation about it. And no one can help you if they don't understand you. So if they don't get what you're doing, they're not going to be able to introduce you to the right person, bring it to the next. So have I made it clear why this is important? Okay. Do you feel bought in? Spend the next hour working on this together. Is anybody I don't really think this is important or want to do this. Okay. Does anybody, or it's this is fluffy. This is fluffy stuff. This is what other people do, and that's okay. I know you all are really brilliant. Maybe you look a little skeptical about story. Okay. Sure. Okay. Okay. Great.
Can I ask a question? Where does the 9 second come from?
I guess it's research that has shown that within 9 seconds, somebody either understands what you're doing or they don't understand it.
He's also skeptical about the 9 seconds.
He's skeptical about the 9 seconds. Yeah. Do you feel like that's accurate though?
For sure.
In 9 seconds, just to get your head around what this person's actually talking about?
I don't know. I think it depends on whether they're to listen to me or not.
Yeah.
Maybe that's as much buy-in as you can expect, listening-wise, before they start to move towards the yawn.
Yeah.
As a way of reframing that.
1 second sounds more realistic.
That'd be nice.
Well, the good news is I'm not going to make you put your pitch in 9 seconds. So we're going to work on honing your pitch to about 2 minutes. But hopefully within that first 9 seconds, you will be able to establish credibility, which I also know is really important in the kind of work that you're doing. Is this person for real? I think that's something that we all also know in the back of our head, and your ability to be able to really convincingly tell your story is going to help get you to that next phase.
Yeah, we are showing multiple slides, 9 seconds for each slide, so or just only,
Let's not get too stuck on it, but I think the 9 seconds is just enough time to get you hooked. And I think, to me, this is really about credibility. Somebody comes up to you on the train and starts talking to you, in 9 seconds, you're going to know, is this am I in a crazy situation, or is this person actually looking for directions, or is this a lost tourist? So I think it's a little bit of that credibility.
And I think we're talking about you're in an elevator at a conference where this is the scenario. You don't have slides. You don't have your business card, an exec summer 1-pager. And as a result, you need to be able to capture this human's attention because 9 seconds maybe all you have in the elevator together. And will they potentially give you their business card because they understand where you're coming from? They want a follow-up combo.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're going to work on the innovation narrative structure. That's the main learning that I want to bring to you all so that you have an opportunity to be able to create a narrative structure that helps you tell your story. So I want to tell you a quick story about AugMentors, which is my business, and I wrote it in the format. So I just want to make sure I have it right here. So imagine a world where everyone has a great mentor, someone who has their back, is able to guide their path. This matters the most to entrepreneurs like you all who struggle to be able to tell their story and move their business forward. Not saying that you have to, that you struggle, but so AugMentors is the business that I started at the cusp of the pandemic. I met my business partner, Jimmy. He invited me to be a guest lecturer in his class. And as the pandemic started, we started talking about how much mentors had meant to us. We wanted to talk about mentoring, so we started a podcast. And as we developed the podcast, we realized there's a real missed opportunity for bringing mentoring as strategic consulting engagement to other groups. How do we bring more mentoring to more people? So we started doing consulting agreements, and we saw that people were willing to invest in their organizations. And because of AugMentors, we have helped hundreds of entrepreneurs find mentors and bring their business to life. In short, we know to we support people to support each other. That's my story of AugMentors. Now, I could tell you 20 different things about AugMentors. How did I do? What do you think? Do you feel like you have a sense of what we do? A little bit of the story? Yeah? No, you wanted to hear more. I'm like, this is.
That's the point, right?
Well, I wrote it, I wanted to really follow the format. I really wanted to follow the format. So, and it actually helps me too, because I can talk a lot as well. It helps bring it back down. So that format that I used
was about 20 seconds.
It was about 20 seconds. So we started, so this is the emotion and the impact. So you want to draw it in with emotion about how you got here and how you started. But you want to also communicate the impact. If I just told you my Sabi story about emotion and how I had a great mentor and I love mentoring and isn't that great, you'd be like, okay. But when I told you that we've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs find mentors and we believe that supporting people, yes.
So in your story and how you developed it, beforehand, when you first launched this, how much information did you have on your customer or your potential customer or your customer segment?
Is that relevant for my
story development? I would argue,
yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. So to understand how we got to where it's like, what's the consulting agreement, or how the strategic consulting is part of it?
No. Understanding your customer needs, so you understand what you're selling, so you understand your story to hook people.
Yeah.
To bring them in to say, because I could talk about. So I created a thermoformable ceramic during my PhD, and we are looking to, manufacture it. It's very boring. But if I tell you all of a sudden that I am solving electronic failure problems or the shortcomings in electronic thermal management, all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, wait, my phone fails. I get it. Right. So, but my customer, I know my customer needs now. And so that draws that hook in.
Yeah.
And so my question is then for that story.
Yeah.
Did you already know your customer segment and human first?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I could have definitely delved more into knowing that the loneliness epidemic, people feeling disconnected from others within their organizations, people feel mentoring being a really, something that people really value. So that definitely would have added more to the story. So I appreciate that. You'll all get a chance to do that in this as well. Anything else? That's a great point. Gonna be back. Okay, so we're going to go through each of these, and then you are going to work on this for your business, and then we will come back together. So you're going to start with the hook to grab attention. You are going to introduce the characters to create emotional connection, which could absolutely be your customers. It could be yourselves. We're going to use the journey to build credibility and trust, show the impact to demonstrate value. Is this a real, what is the impact? What is the value that you're bringing? And end with the net. You always want to, my background, my first job and my background has been in public relations. So you always want to tell them what you told them, tell them again, tell them again. So at the end, you want to end on the net to reinforce your main message.
Julie, I'm going to ask a quick
Please.
question on behalf of the room here.
Yes.
So not all of our folks are selling to customers yet, right?
Yep.
So I think some of what Jason is getting at is, we've done the customer discovery. We think we know who needs it. Regarding impact, it hasn't necessarily been demonstrated. We do have a couple of companies here that are selling to market, which is exciting. So they can speak to, kind of, I don't want to say actual impact, but kind of real world there in market can demonstrate what that means. Others cannot. And so is there anything for those who are not yet actively, kind of in market and dealing with their character, so to speak, directly? Anything they should think about as they kind of craft the story?
What do you all think? Those of you that are in that position, what kind of, is there some impact you can communicate? Potential impacts? How many people watch your thing? No? Believe you? It's great storytelling. Actually, it's great. Even if you think the show is super hokey, it's great. I mean, they really use this formula, right? So they will say, they might be pre-revenue, but their potential impact is, like $1 billion. But yeah, potential impact. Anything else? Any other thoughts on how you can communicate your impact? I mean, the amount of people that can be impacted. And I also think, especially given the world as it is and uncertainty and adaptability, I think also helping, especially if you're talking to investors or customers, with tailwinds, headwinds. So what are the headwinds and the tailwinds? What do you see coming in the future? What do you see the future impact to be? There might not be an impact that's happening today, but based on what you know could be potentially coming down the pike or how the world is adapting, this could be a bigger problem even than it is today. Does that answer your question? Are there any other ideas, thoughts?
Maybe costs.
Costs?
Yeah, depending on the context of your idea.
Yeah.
It's impacting some organization or some product's cost.
If this thing happens, the next thing happens.
Mhm.
Maybe as we go into the exercise, we can start to see, and so was anything else you were thinking of?
Yeah, no, I just think when you said, we've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs or over 100 entrepreneurs, I know not all of you have that number yet as to exactly how many people necessarily are going to be either fixed, healed, serviced as part of what it is you're working on. So I would think through, your customer discovery efforts, possibly what you think the market size is. If you don't know what the market size is, I think you are discussing kind of what Kyle just mentioned here. You're saving time, right? You're saving money potentially for folks. And again, if you don't know your numbers today, what I would do is I would put your placeholder there. I would say, if you know that you're saving time and money, but you don't know how much, you can say that as that part of kind of impact part of your story, with the understanding that when we follow up over the summer, at that point in time, we will expect that you have done your due diligence and looked into the numbers and you're able to fill in those blanks. And it'll be your choice, right, as to how it is you're going to demonstrate impact. But if you want to workshop that live with us here today, as you're working on your story yourself, because you're going to have some time to do so, call us over. Julie can help, I can help. The entrepreneurial librarian staff can help. I just volunteered them, but we're all here. You have a couple of different kind of perspectives and voices to help you think through how you're going to demonstrate impact if you're not actively doing it in the market yet.
And the goal for today is to get you thinking. I'm not at the end of, at 11 o'clock, you're not going to have this nailed. So this is to get you prepped. And then the next section, as we're really talking about who you're talking to, these are both to get you prepped for the time with us and the coaching and then the event in the fall.
Yeah, we're happy to help you brainstorm.
Great. So quickly, we'll just talk through these. So the hook, this is your attention grabber, the first thing that you say that makes people want to hear more. Generally, statistics, again, if you watch Shark Tank, they'll always come on and say, did you know that X, Y, and Z? So the surprising statistic, thought-provoking question, a statement, something that talks like immediately draws people in. That's your first 9 seconds. I don't understand your business, but I understand. So what if you've been taking probiotics, or what if you've been wasting, thousands of dollars on probiotics, or, the average probiotic has 98% dead probiotics. I'm kind of making this up, but right, like what is that thing that draws people in immediately in that first 9 seconds and they want to hear more? So that's really your initial hook. So the characters, these are the people that are affected by the problem you're solving, the human side of your story. So I was telling you about myself and Jimmy as entrepreneurs and myself as an entrepreneur, and the fact that mentors can help support you on your journey. So people are part of everything that you all do. And it's easy sometimes when you're really in the innovation and the technical part to forget the people, but people connect to people, to stories about other people. So making sure that you're able to tell the story of the people that are affected by the work that you do. Bring them into it. Sometimes it feels uncomfortable because you want to show how smart you are. You want to show how brilliant your innovation is, but really try to connect it back to the people that are impacted. That's going to be meaningful to your customers and to your investors, potentially. Is there any questions about these two? Right, that I talked about. So the journey. So this is a little bit of the path we've taken, right? I talked about Jimmy, and we met right at the beginning of the pandemic. Then we were locked in our houses and we were trying to figure out what to do. So we started a podcast. So what are some of the obstacles we found? What were some of the things that happened, right? We were still in the pandemic and we discovered that we could potentially bring in consulting. You know, we didn't talk a lot about sort of the ups and downs, but I think a little bit of that emotional thread. What did you encounter what have you encountered on your journey that makes it a story that pulls you in? Maybe, does anybody have something right off the top of their head as I'm talking about this? Something that they had like, oh yeah, thought it was going to be like this, but then we realized it was going to be different. Anything that comes up right away?
Yeah, for us, we started off, thought we were gonna like develop therapeutics for it's very complex disease. And we talked to a bunch of customers and physicians, and we're like, oh crap, like we can't, nobody's gonna buy that. Then we eventually pivoted, and now we're basically going direct to consumer probiotics. So totally pivoted and things changed, but not for just some emotion in my head. It was like talk to people in real life.
Yeah, that's great. That's the customer journey, right? Is understanding, doing that customer discovery and understanding that what you thought, and maybe you had invested in that part, and then it's like, okay, that's not going to work. So how do you pivot? Anyone else? What's up? Could you speak up just a little bit? That's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. The concept of pitching your technology versus actually substance, right? So saying I have this cool technology that can do X, Y, and Z, but you're not really dictating what they care about. And so speaking to what they care about in that 9 seconds is your hook, right? Because you're immediately talking, I mean, right? So if I say, you know, I had this material, that can do Y and Z, that's boring to them. But if I say, I'm going to fix your radar problems with this thing that has X, Y, and Z, do X, Y, and Z, then they care in that 9 seconds. Right? And so that's that customer discovery. We've done it. It's flipped through that customer journey. But that was why I asked that question prior, is because I've now run through this a few times. And depending on who you're talking to, which customer segment, it changes that story pitch and what the investor thesis is.
Yep. Well, and that's exactly the second part of our time together today is the who cares. And that's a great question to ask yourself. Why do they care? What do they care about? So exactly, making sure that you're able to have your story straight and then be able to pivot along the way. Anything thoughts? So the impact, this is really important. This is where their ears are going to prick up, especially if they're an investor, right? Like, and to your point, not all of you have, but we've already made, you know, we have thousands of customers. That obviously gets people excited. We've made X number of dollars, but how many people have you helped? How many people are impacted by this? How much money is being saved? How many things that could potentially happen in the future are not going to happen because of what you are working on? So making sure that the impact, that's really bold statement, and you want to be really clear when you're saying that. That is one of the things that is going to stick with people, and then you repeat it again in the net. So just to, you know, in sum, This is what we've created. This is what's happened. This is the impact. And a great part of this, depending upon who you're talking to, is how do we relate to you? So what I'd love from you today is to have a follow-up call so I can tell you a little bit more. What I'd love from you today is if you know anybody who's working in the space, I'd love to hear more. So this is when you kind of bring in that in some, and then you bring in the ask potentially, depending upon the conversation. So we're going to bring, I can't believe I have D. I apologize. I have to figure out where I thought Deary was that. But okay, so so I know this is old school, but I have paper for you all to work on this because I want this to feel like a scratch sheet. I'm happy to also share it as a Google Doc afterwards, but I think while we're here and then we'll share it on online, just for you to be able to start jotting these down. So I know you two will work together. So I'll give everybody one. Right here, just pass it around. And we will, and you're welcome to do the exercise. Well, yeah. Because you're communicating the impact of the work that you do in the Entrepreneur Library. So everybody feel free to work on this. We're going to take, I think, probably about 8 minutes or so, maybe till 5 to 11, for you all to work quietly, work together, and then come back and share out what you got so far. And then I will share it in here for you folks.
And for those of us in person, if you don't have a teammate here with you, you do want to discuss with somebody, feel free to call myself or Julie over. We're happy to help you brainstorm if you feel like a partner.
Allowing enterprise to control an entire floor network like that. Usually takes like months.
Software.
In software, yeah. So we have a software platform that you just express what your needs like, even in natural language, that you can segments to meet whatever requirement they have. Okay, robots around flying, connectivity or some machine learning. Their priority. We do that. Let them do that. I already something about like are you working on materials?
That's the technology.
You should have access to I've seen probably some of the names are already.
So are you consider?
Yeah, watched it. Yeah.
So are you?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
We have co-ops. We have like usually 2 or 3 co-ops.
I just was curious.
Yeah, they are the ones that develop it, and we are. So
I I'm wondering if it's okay to make it
high level, and then we try to make it much product. And that's what they do. Strengthen whatever they have. Yeah, we have one in Italy. And we also have some here in the US. We have like $2 million in contracts in the war, so we received the last couple of years. So yeah, we try not to.
It's like what?
World where you have access to analysis.
No. Where'd you get the money from? Black contracts.
you graduated.
I also graduated. Yes, I am part of Phoenix.
So yeah, like imagine a world where
So it was not my piece. Have two SDRs.
your assignments or your. I think I would need it like if you're as a student, like
Beginning.
like what do you do, like as a student, what's the impact?
We're trying to develop.
Like how do we make
To
your
sell
life?
positions and very consumer. I guess I don't know if you take probiotics or anybody. Yeah, much. Because we're in senior, just saying, yes, you just don't know, right? You go on Amazon and look, so I don't know which one.
Yeah, this is the trend.
Why they take it, right? So we're trying to solve.
Also, we are using
I know you are. I know the problem you have. Take this, right? Like it was like a drop down. It's like okay, here's take this. Yeah. So I'm gonna get even got with my wife. Love that. Yeah. Well, it's a huge problem. Like my mom does the same stuff. Right? Like, it's crazy. Like you can buy probiotics for $100. Some of them are really like legit. Right now, it's pretty good science. I think that's just the same. Just go see the
You guys have about 5 minutes and you're gonna give us your very quick top line. So
The ideas come from my brain. Yeah, I jumped in
like
post 2 years post.
information or like imagine a world where
Not teaching how to do this.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, maybe like, I was gonna say imagine a world where all this information is just like separate. It's like all condensed into one thing. But it's not. When you meet with us, but we can help.
And for those folks in person, don't forget to eat and drink if you would like. We do have snacks and we do have half steel coffee and water.
So we're just super top line. We don't need to nail this. This is a sign of control here.
Think about the coffee today. Think about the hot coffee.
Get your words out, reward yourself. Yeah.
Because you know the try to, as you know that there. We could.
We're gonna just give it a shot. This is just getting like get the reps in here. You don't have to. You can sit. If you want to stand, it makes you feel better.
Approximately 30 years ago, there was a dramatic shift in gas chromatography where the original technology was replaced by another one. And now we are at the edge of similar shift in liquid chromatography space. The characters, and we think that this will help any analytical chemistry research scientists who struggle with analysis of extremely small samples like single cells, single tumor cells, and microbiopsies. The journey. We need together with Alexander, we are developing some technology and we are trying to commercialize the technology that we developed in our lab. Problem we want to solve. This technology will bring more insights into the small sample sizes. And initial challenge that's where we stopped is initial challenge we are facing is to making this technology more robust and user friendly.
Okay, what do we think? Do you have a sense of the people in the story? Or do you have mostly a sense of the technology?
It's more of the technology.
I think mostly the technology. Any other thoughts? I definitely understand your business. I understand what you're doing better than I did before. So I think that's helpful, but I think the people, surfacing a bit of the people. So the scientists who struggle because they don't have this technology, or the things that scientists is going to do that they're not able to do because they don't have this technology. So that could be one way as you kind of continue on your journey of working on this to get started. But I think it was a great start. How do you feel about it?
Needs to open.
Yeah, but it's great. I think if you add some of the people in there.
There were two small different versions here, so maybe Alexander can also.
Okay, do you want to do your version?
You know?
I think there is a conflict right there. A related field in chromatography, namely gas chromatography, was revolutionized by bringing a new technology about 40 years ago. Multiple labs tried to implement a similar shift in the technology in our separation type, liquid chromatography, and many impressive papers were published, but the technology was never commercialized. And we are trying to make it happen to enable high sensitivity analysis of small samples where people can collect biological samples and clinical samples at home, just a few cells or maybe a few microliters of blood, ship it to the...
I'm going to stop you there. It's a lot of technology, and I think in 9 seconds, I still don't, So I think we don't have a ton of time, so we're probably going to move on, but I think really connecting to the people. Really connecting to the people, what would you say?
Yeah, I'm just going to hop in here. If you were to think about restructuring the pitch, right, and talk about like the what if, I think your what if is around what you were just getting into, Alexander, right? Like, what if folks were able to better assess small sample sizes in order to more quickly diagnose, or I'm making this up, right? But you would fill in the blanks in order to better diagnose be it viruses or diseases that could then be more easily or more efficiently treated and either save lives or bring care to patients, in a way that feels more feasible or is more cost effective. I think that's really what we're getting into. So it's not that we don't care that there's a major shift 40 years ago and now we see a shift again today, but I don't know that in your 90-second elevator pitch that's going to resonate as much with people as you stating that you have a new way to analyze small samples of blood, right, or other things from the body that help folks diagnose things more quickly. And we have done other storytelling workshops with this group in particular, where you call out that this is not like Theranos number 2, or was that the group? What was the group that did? Yeah. Like that's not what you're suggesting. You can actually do it, right? But like, what if that actually worked and you were able to help enable it with this full piece of technology that you've developed, that you're now commercializing? I think that's kind of what you have to hone in on right up front, because folks are not familiar with your field. Right, so none of us know that 40 years ago, something extraordinary happened in your field. It's incredibly important to you in your field, but it's not incredibly important necessarily to the end user. What's incredibly important is that you can analyze smaller sample sizes more effectively than anybody else, and as a result, we can get care of patients a lot faster and more effectively than ever before. Doesn't matter.
And I have a section that says who cares, but it really should be why should I care? Why should I care? Why should I care? So great. And we all know the Theranos because of the story. Correct. Like, I think, that's a pretty great example. Not that any of us want to have that story, but it's, that's the story. So keep working on it. Great. So let's try to keep it pretty quick if we can. Okay, go ahead.
I'll do the first two, the hook and the character. So for anyone diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, keeping your glucose within the range of the upper and lower bound is an Herculean task. Our technology, what we call Sugar Slate, helps you do that because we use AI models for personalized predictions that tell you an hour in advance of where your glucose level is going to be, and you can be prepped for whatever the solution is.
What do we think? I understand what you do.
I still get into the technology part.
And I think also as a way to augment it a bit is also surfacing the people because, I think you kind of touched on that a little bit, but almost like bringing that to life, like, knowing that just having like a little bit more of a picture of what a type 1 diabetes patient goes through during their day. I think continues to bring it to life. But yeah, I think that's great. You two are together now here.
My colleagues, online.
Oh, okay. Do you want him to? Do you want to jump in?
Hello. Hello. How are
Hi.
you? Hello. Sorry for my voice. I had a little fever, but I try to be clear as possible. So for deep charge, the story I can tell this story basically. Imagine that you are a operation manager in a warehouse and you're running the warehouse, and suddenly in the middle of the operation shift, the mobile devices, they failed. The whole shipment delay, the operation halt, uh, and this going to impact the whole supply chain. This device downtime problem is not something that casually happen. Is actually happening every day in the warehouses, and each minute of the device downtime costs $6,000 per equipment. And considering this over the all just U.S. warehouses, this is a $3 billion problem that we are addressing.
Excellent use.
Yes, I didn't hear you. There was a question. So.
That is excellent use of statistics. Okay. That was excellent use of statistics. That's great. I had no idea this was a problem. I know it was happening all the time. So thanks for that. That was great. All right.
I'm just gonna quick put a note in here that Deep Charge is one of our spin-outs that does have customers, right? So when we talk about impact and preparing to demonstrate that impact, they're using numbers that they know, are true because they're selling into organizations already and they're kind of aware about who their customers are and what that means for their customers. So for those of you thinking about impact, right? Julie's totally correct that the stats are incredible to have. You can look up some of these stats and you can use some of your market statistics so you understand your customer better, but just understand the difference here. And we totally understand that each of you are coming from a different place regarding readiness to prepare and propose those stats as part of your story. And that is okay, right? We're going to work around that to the best of our ability together. But we do appreciate this story because you all have an example of a spin out that is commercializing tech that can use stats effectively to demonstrate that impact. All right, Jason.
Go for it.
Critical communication systems fail because of overheating, resulting in 75% downtime just to cool these things. This is expensive. And our most advanced radar systems for our warfighter, reliability is paramount. Downtime can mean mission failure. We are a team of technical experts that deeply understand radar and heat at the materials level. We will provide materials that solves these thermal challenges in these radar systems. And then I can move down through the story.
What do you think? I don't know if I totally understand who you serve.
As far as the customer base,
Yeah.
may that be? So it'll be things like the Air Force or the Navy.
Okay, so mostly
Dual use warfighter.
dual use warfighters.
So dual use technology, and then the warfighter would be like the Navy, the Air Force, So
Okay.
it's the broad spectrum of the DoD.
Okay.
Use the DoD too. There's multiple terms here depending on.
Okay. I think that's helpful because I didn't totally understand. I'm obviously not familiar with it, but yeah. No, I think, what do we think? Got the picture? Starting to see what the impact could be? I think that's great.
I
Great,
think
sir.
what I would recommend similar to for mixed LC media is try and reframe and begin with the what if or with your customer, right? So what if these, frontline fighters didn't have radar issues or tools malfunctioning or whatever it may be at the same rate that they do today, right? What if mission failure was less of a thing or not a thing at all because we're able to reduce that or ensure that it's more predictable so that we can plan ahead, right? I think that if you can start something like that's the hook. When we say hook, you want to talk about something that's going to resonate with people. So even with sugar slang, you want to say, what if your niece, nephew, child, cousin, mother's brother, whatever it is, didn't have sugar failure and end up in the ER on a regular basis? Right, like these are some of the things when we say like the what if or the hook, like what's going to resonate with somebody else's heart. And it's not that you don't want to get in their head as well, right? Like you're going to provide some stats that are going to stick in their head, but some of it is about hitting home and heart first. So this is like what if first responders didn't deal with mission failure, critical mission failures, or fatal mission failures on a regular basis.
I remember you're just trying to get to the next meeting. You're trying to, so somebody is like, oh, actually, I know somebody for you to talk to. Even if they're not in your industry, you think they're not going to have any idea what you're talking about, you never know. You literally never know. Yes.
Yeah, can I throw something in here?
Please.
So like from the perspective of someone who doesn't have a background in science or business, when like founders come to meet with me, like you said, if I can't understand them, I can't help them. And so it's easier to start with the very basics of what you do. And then I can actually say, okay, what is the technology? Because then I can delve into the research terminology. But one thing I wanted to bring up is yesterday I attended this improv session led by one of my colleagues who did this improv session where you would explain a concept to a professor, and then you would explain it to a student, and then you would explain it to your mom, and then you would explain it to a kindergartner. And it helps you kind of work out some of the jargon and simplify your idea. And I think that might be useful to think through with this too, because like I don't understand some of the science or some of the terminology. And so when someone's pitching to me, like you said, it's not hooking me because I don't know.
And also, to be honest, if you don't understand it, you feel stupid. And if somebody feels stupid, they're not going to keep asking you questions, and they're not going to get to know more because they're going to feel like you're clearly talking about something I don't know anything about. So I'm going to try to get out of this conversation as fast as humanly possible because I feel dumb. So the more you can dumb it down in that initial, especially people who don't know, right? Obviously, you're talking to investors, you're talking to, the professor, if they know, but if they don't know, the more you can really bring it down, I think the more comfortable people feel that they can kind of build up from there.
I'll just bring up with investors, occasionally you're pitching to a full team. So there may be somebody on the panel that knows what you're talking about, but there may be 4 that don't. And if they make a decision as a group, for example, with Northeastern University partners who does invest in the universities and not solely, if you can't describe what you do to the entire group, that entire group votes no for you, right? You might have one person on the panel that's a yes, but if 4 others are no because they don't understand it, that means you didn't communicate to the 4 that don't understand your tech. And sometimes that's really important in a dilutive funding environment. There are groups that make decisions as groups, as opposed to as individuals within the group. So just something to keep in mind as you think through this storytelling and ensure that everybody at the table understands where you're coming from.
All right, so let's do our last 2 and then we'll have some.
Yeah. So my colleague is actually online.
Okay, great.
I wrote something down, he wrote something down, so I'm gonna do like a mix of the 2.
A tag team, okay.
Yeah. So enterprises are trying to get into full automation in their facilities, but they're stick with Wi-Fi. And with Wi-Fi, you cannot have robots in the facility because they get disconnected once they move from one place to another one. 5G can solve these problems, but it's designed for operators, not for enterprises, which have no knowledge about 5G. So we have designed a technology that makes everyone in seconds to customize their network to their needs and enable automation in their facilities. This is a technology that we have already a customer. It's deployed at 3 different facilities in Europe and in the US. So we have secured more than $2 million contracts, and we are revolutionizing the way cellular networks are being deployed and managed for enterprises.
Okay. Is your partner gonna, or you were doing the whole thing?
Yeah, I'm just,
Okay, you 2, okay. I was like, wait, was there more? That's
yeah, it's a
lot.
combination of what I brought down.
Great. I think there's something about, even to Katie's point, like what's the impact of this not working? What is the impact of networks not working? And I don't think I totally understood you said, was it enterprise? I don't know if I totally understood exactly. Like I didn't have a picture of who your client is.
Yeah, it's kind of like warehouse owners, landowners, universities as well are what are considered enterprise in the connectivity.
Okay. Yeah, I think probably bringing that to life a little bit more in terms of like what the actual impact is or who customers or clients might be.
And again, I would get into like the what if everyone, technical and non-technical, could customize their own networks to do what it is they need done when they want it done. Right, something along those lines, just a little bit catch here.
Okay, probiotics.
Yes.
What did you know?
So imagine you yourself or your loved one, your kids has a stomach ache, right? So you go to Amazon, you search probiotics, and you just don't know where to begin. There's all these different options. They say they could cure every illness you have, and you don't know what to buy. Now you also have a headache. And so this is really the experience of like tens of millions of Americans spend like $12 to $13 billion a year on this problem, and it's ever growing, riding the functional medicine, food as medicine wave. So we set out to solve the probiotic trust problem. And the way we're going to do that is really identify sets of symptoms, diseases, and have a tailored solution for that given patient, and ideally solve that problem.
I like it. That is a very personal business, so I'd be curious, and you don't have to answer this, but I'd love to hear your story, why you're interested in this. Or, I think that kind of goes for everybody too, as you have a little bit more time, like why do you, especially the health related ones, like do you have a loved one with type 1 diabetes? Do you, take probiotics and realize they're all a bunch of dead bacteria? I think there could be like a personal element to that brings in part of the story as well. Katie, you have anything else?
So I think the library has a joint initiative that they're also going to pitch here.
Go for it.
You all do it.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so we were kind of struggling. We had some good things, so I did some rearranging based on our talk before. So our book was Imagine a World Where You Have the Skill Set to Find Competitor, Market, and Funding Information that you need to either build or grow your stuff. So that's our
Okay.
Characters is myself and Lily and Ivy, our team, and then the goal problem we want to solve. We want to solve the challenge that the fragmented modern information landscape presents to discovering information that you need.
And what is the transformation of utilizing your resources?
The transformation.
Or like how did
Yeah, I started working on something.
Oh,
So
I didn't
like
get
the
that far.
impact is out. You're
get
getting.
impacted?
I wrote, because of CDMR, so our Center for Disruptive Market Research, you now know how to apply business research to your startup to increase the success of your go-to-market strategy.
I like it. I think you can also talk about what does it feel like when you just are operating. I know we talked about customer discovery without the right information.
Mm-hmm. Or
What
don't
kind
know
of
what
bad
to
business
look, or-
decisions
yeah.
do you come up with? What kind of,
How much time does it take?
Waste of time.
Wasted time, correct. And aging of tech to go to market, all the.
Yeah. Cool. These are great resources. Okay. Anybody, did I miss anybody online? Anybody else? No, this was great. This was a phenomenal first pass. I know you've done some of the storytelling a little bit in the past, but this is just an opportunity to practice. You have these forms, we'll send them out, work on it, and then when we meet up again in for our coaching conversations, I will really be excited to hear how you've honed this using this framework to be able to really get people hooked in. So in our last sort of 15 minutes here, I just want to run through a little bit of this who cares. And so this is really important to ask yourself, because I have been doing business development most of my career, and this is something that I have often gotten wrong, is I want people to know everything about my product and everything about my service and everything about my company. And I don't immediately say, what do you need? What is the most important thing to you? And what we know, especially with customers, is they only care if it relates to them. They only care how it relates to them. We're going to talk about current customers and future customers. Current customers. So I need to make money, or I need to save money. I need to look good to my boss. I need to preserve I heard something phenomenal that somebody very, very senior told me once. All leaders care about is fear or fame. So as you get to know your customers, are they afraid that they're going to make a bad decision and look bad? Or do they want to make a decision and they are going to save the day? And they're going to be the most important person in the company. So fear or fame, probably the same for investors, right? They're afraid if they're going to make a bad decision, they're going to look bad. Or they really care about making, fame, big impact. I made a big impact. So as you're thinking about how you're telling your story, you always want to be able to make sure they understand how this is going to make them look good. this is going to make them money or they're going to save money. How will this help? Does that make sense? Has anybody sold anything where they've had this, or has anybody been in this position where they've seen like a customer kind of the lights come on? I don't know if you who has revenue. Yeah. Do you have an example of, or what do you feel like people, your customers?
The customers would like, they try to save the time. Costed for them because the operation is very costly for them. We try, to take that is traditional traveling. And the 1 hour just to take out the kids.
Yeah.
And they say that, that also they are paid, stuff, the stuff, the meals and everything. They said that, they need to find, giving some solution to increasing throughput.
Yeah.
To pay for that. And also to save some money.
Save money. Yeah. Yeah. And that is, again, the fear of fame, right? They want to save the company. If they're able to save money, they're going to look great to their boss. They're going to get a promotion. Their wife's going to like them better. They're going to get a new car, and then their neighbors are going to think they're cool. And, it feels like that's not why people make decisions, but that's a lot of the reason why people make decisions. So figuring out what that is that you are offering that's going to connect with them and, making sure that you're really talking about that.
Depends on the business.
Yeah.
Small business or big business. Big business always they want to save money.
Yeah.
Small business they say that we make. Right. Be careful about that.
Well, and it can be either one. I guess it depends upon where the company is. And so knowing that technology changed 40 years ago or that this was a big change in technology isn't going to make them famous or it's not going to make them special to their boss. Have you? This is purely my opinion and my own experience. So don't take this as like research evidence based, but I do know in sales this is a really, really important piece. So always connecting it back to them. What's going to happen to them if they are part of your process? So you really want to think about what's keeping them up at night, what would make their life easier. We talked a little about customer discovery, which is in here as well. So collaborators, so folks that are you're going in with partners to sell to customers. You all know collaborators are. I think this is really important because, again, in that first 9 seconds, you want to be able to establish credibility. Do these people know what the hell they're talking about, and can they help me? So you've all been in situations where somebody's like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of working on something similar, and blah, 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 and we should talk, and we can, you're kind of sniffing, like, is this person, like, well, are they for real? Like, what are they, can they really help me? So I think being really clear, I think you can go down a lot of, you can go down a lot of dead ends with collaborators. So really being clear the value that each of you can bring to the stakeholder and, just being cautious about it. And when you are trying to find collaborators, make sure you're really clear about the value of your collaborator, what's going to be impactful for them. Why do they want to partner with you? Why do they want to collaborate with you? And make sure you're really communicating your credibility, you're communicating your value. And this is when you have a good story is really helpful. So that they can really see your vision. So future customers, why do I really need this? And do I really need to take the leap now? Is the time right? This is really important. And also, again, fear or fame. If people bring in a whole new system and it fails, they've gotten rid of their old vendor, they brought in a new vendor and fails, they're going to look terrible. So the switch, especially if you're in a competitive environment from one way of doing it to a new way of doing it, it's really important that they feel very confident in what you're doing. And is the time right? Why do they need to do this right now? It is much, much easier for them to keep an old vendor, unless the vendor is terrible, than it is to take the leap and do something. So be really clear why, the urgency of the situation. So non-dilutive funders, that's aligned with our goals. I think we shared about the investor thesis for investors. So this is similar for these kind of funders, like what are they working on? And you may have the best thing in the world, but if it doesn't align with what they're doing, they really, it's not important to them. So how does your work advance their bigger goals? Making sure you're really clear on that in your story. And then obviously funders. So how am I going to make money off of this? That's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, 'cause they're the same. It depends on like what kind of dilutive mechanism you're going after. Like if you're going after an angel investor, like they care about the personal problems. Going after a venture capitalist, how much money is your ROI? And can you make that big 10x return?
Yeah.
And then the dilutive, with the non-dilutive, right? They care about the same thing. At the end of the day, like if you're in a similar
They want that ROI because they think it's the same mechanism. The objective, but also the ROI that you're going to.
It's really dependent, but the most important thing is what's in it for them. What's in it for them? What are their goals? And taking your time to really make sure you're doing research so you really understand that.
I think the purpose of looking into each of these who cares is the impact and the value, right? So when you're thinking through how you're going to update your 90-second pitch, if you get into an elevator and you know that you just got in with a dilutive funder because you're attending a conference and you did your due diligence ahead of time and you recognize this human, as part of your 90-second pitch, your kind of 1 through 4 may remain the same. But when you get into your impact and your value, you're now answering the questions that Julie just had on her last slide, right? About ROI, about if it's an angel, what they care about, because you know that they care about what you care about. That's the part of your 90-second pitch that may change. What we're working on today is something that's a bit broader, right? Something that you get in an elevator, you don't know who this is, but they may be impactful, so you're going to tell them something. And that something has to resonate with just about anybody before you're doing any tailoring. But the idea here is that sometimes you do have to tailor, right? And so if you are going to tailor, what are the kinds of questions you have to ask yourself in order to best tailor based on who you know you're having that 90 seconds with?
Exactly. That's why we have the mystery person. So you just are at a conference, you have no idea who this person is. You're in the elevator or even at the event fall, you don't know. So the most important thing is that you demonstrate impact and value. So what is the impact? What is the value of what you're doing? And having this work that we did together today so that you feel really confident being able to communicate it to anybody. They're going to understand what you're going to do. They're going to see that you're credible. They're going to see that you're making an impact. Then they'll think, oh, you'll say, oh, that's nice. Good luck. They'll think, wow, that person's really cool and smart. They started a business. Or they'll say, you know what, actually, there's somebody I really would like to introduce you to. Who knows? You never know.
And at the event in the fall, we plan to have different stakeholders in attendance. So you're going to have to be able to pitch something that resonates with a broader audience, because likely there will be a dilutive funder who may or may not be in your domain. There will likely be a non-dilutive funder who may or may not be in your domain. We're going to have an ecosystem supporter, so to speak. So we might pull in somebody that runs like an incubator, a studio, or an accelerator who may or may not be in your domain. As you know, Northeastern is a bit research agnostic. You all do something a little bit different. We are not all working on something similar or the same. And so we'll do our best to cover as many categories, right? As many kind of topic areas as we can. But you will not know ahead of time necessarily, who kind of falls into your category in particular, and all of them get a vote, right? So you're going to have to be able to communicate your value and your impact to the entire kind of board of judges there.
Exactly. For your mystery person. All right, great. We have 4 minutes left. So, the slide challenge, very hard. So this is just top line stuff. You all know this, less is more, make it visual, tailor to your audience. If you know your audience, focus on the story, not the features. What is the story of your transformation? What is the story of your innovation, not the features? We don't need to know that your probiotics have 12 billion CFUs, is that right? CFUs, but it's like, it actually works. This is, you really want to talk about your story, not necessarily just the features, and then practice it. These are just a couple examples, right? 3.6 million people miss critical diagnosis each year. Wow. We want to know more. I don't know more about AI, but that was very impactful. AI diagnostic tool. Our innovative approach provides results in minutes rather than weeks, advancing AI to achieve a remarkable 94% accuracy, leading to charge diagnostic testing, leading the charge to diagnostic testing. Wow. You want to hear more. So these are just examples. What if farmers can double their yield? So these are the kind of slides that we're thinking about, something that's very, very grabs you, very visual. It's clear to understand. You understand that this is about farmers. You understand this is about agriculture. You understand that these are farmers who need to double their yield. Like, it's clear this is something related to agriculture, and there's some kind of technology that's going to be important. So they're going to get it right away. So having some of these kind of examples, I think, is really helpful. And I think about this size. And then these are just guidelines you could use, kind of your problem and your origin story for your first slide, second slide, but keeping it super, super simple.
Yeah, let's be very clear here. So you are not answering every single one of these questions here or bullet points verbally with words, right? But you're thinking about how you best visualize one, your problem and your origin story, and then two, your solution and impact. So when we get together for the showcase in the fall, you will have the ability to have up to 2 slides and up to 2 minutes to speak. We will be practicing this over the summer. If you are not visually inclined, so to speak, to build slides that you feel are going to be most beautiful and tell your story, right? In 2 slides, we can have a discussion about what kind of support may be available for you to create 2 slides that are aesthetically pleasing, that you feel best support you telling your story with less as it relates to written word, right? Because we want more visual, we want more of you telling your story personally, right? You, the human, as opposed to pieces of paper, not paper, but visually, virtually, paper on a screen. You will have that screen support. We're not totally taking away your screen support, but the screen is not the purpose. You and your story are the purpose, right? The slide should be background for you. You're not necessarily referring to it. You are not using your pointers or anything to kind of call anybody's attention to any graph or data. You are using the slide as background, right, for everything you're going to say. So that's what we'll work on this summer together. 2 minutes, 2 slides. Again, if you're not visually or aesthetically kind of inclined to build something artistic as it relates to slides, let's talk about that.
And here it is exactly this. I look forward to hearing the story. And in our conversations, especially the second one, I'll play a few different stakeholders, so potential customers, potential collaborators, investors, so we can get a chance to practice kind of pulling out those key pieces. We're right on time. Are there any questions, any thoughts, any feedback? Was this helpful? I feel like this was new things that you learned. I know it feels a bit uncomfortable if you're not used to it, but I think once you work on the format, once you start practicing, you'll start to feel much more comfortable. Your friends and family will be like, hey, enough, I'm tired of hearing you like give me your whole story over and over again, but really practice it. Really feel like you can own it. Anything else, Kim?
No, I think that's everything. Thank you so much for being here. And those of you who joined us in person, really appreciate it. Those of you online, we appreciate you joining as well. And I do believe that we've recorded the session, so we will be sharing it afterwards for anyone that wants to come back and kind of review again. The slides will be shared.
Yeah,
These last
definitely. And I have a few handouts that help for the Who Cares section that can help answer questions for you for each different stakeholder groups and things that they might be thinking. So you can start feeling prepared, especially as you're talking to investors or collaborators, what kind of questions might be on their mind. So we'll share that, and then we'll share this handout as well. So you have both of those to work on.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. I'm sticking around for a little bit if you have questions, so happy to.
It's great. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck.